Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make tiny improvements to your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon. Hello and welcome to a very special episode. This marks my 100th episode of doing the podcast, and I'm very proud and just very thankful that so many of you have been listening along all this time. If you had told me a year ago that I would be recording my 100th episode, I would have been skeptical. So we are celebrating with a big announcement and a big interview. So first up, today registration opens for the Big Balloon Build in my town, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And we do anticipate registration filling up today. So if you are interested in attending, pause this episode, follow the link in the show notes, and make sure not to wait too long to register if you are interested in participating. Now, with that said, I thought what better way to celebrate my 100th episode of the podcast than to bring you an interview I never thought I would get. Today, I am chatting with Treb Heining, which, if you are not familiar, he created the balloon decor industry. And I am chatting with him about how he invented the first balloon column, balloon arch. It led to inventions like the aeropole system, the glass house balloon, which you might be familiar with at Disney. He's done the balloon drops for Republican and Democrat national conventions, and he does the confetti in Times Square on New Year's Eve. Even if you've never heard of Treb, you are familiar with his work, I promise you. So this interview, I'm so grateful that Treb took the time to talk to me and us about his rich, long career in the industry that I am so grateful to be part of. So with that, let's take a quick break to hear from one of our fabulous sponsors and then get right into this interview with Treb. If you haven't checked out Having a Party Wholesale by now, what are you waiting for? They have all of the brands that we know and love as balloon professionals, and they even offer free shipping on orders over $200. So the next time you need balloons, make sure to check them out. You can click the link in the show notes and tell them that the Bright Balloon Podcast sent you. Welcome to the show, Treb Heining, balloon celebrity, inventor of balloon decor. How do you even explain to people what you do?
I just say I'm a balloon man, and I let them ask questions after that. Because most of the time, when I do meetings or I'm anywhere in the world, I'm traveling. I'm always in suit and tie, and it's funny sometimes because people will say, "Well, what is it you do for a living?" I say, "You'll never guess." And I said, "I'm a balloon man." And they try and justify it. Then, well, you mean like the big hot air balloons, or you're this? I said, "No, just like toy balloons and everything." And then I'll say, "Have you ever been to a Disney park before?" "Oh yeah." And then, "Well, that clear balloon with a Mickey Mouse inside, I invented that product." "No, you didn't." I said, "Yeah, I did." So that's kind of like the entry now that is easily seen, and then if they want to know more, I'll talk about inventing columns and arches and all that kind of stuff.
And
So
how, I don't even know where to start because your accomplishments are insane because you basically created balloon decor and then transitioned more into like product development almost, because I would assume you created out of necessity all of these things for the industry. You've just done so much in your career, but like take us back. When did it start? It never even occurred to me that like someone invented this, like you don't think that until someone tells you about it one day.
yeah, it started back in 1969, and I was starting in high school then, and I was a band kid, played in the band. And when you're in the band in high school, of course, you have a lot of friends that are upperclassmen and so forth. And my brother was a year older than me, so all of a sudden, all these people were my dear friends, and they were getting jobs at Disneyland because they were 18 years old, and I wanted to work there so bad, and yet here I was 15. My dad came home one day and said, "Hey, I got a number here for a guy that Nat Lewis Balloon Company. He operates the balloon concession in Disneyland." And so I started calling them and bugging them, and I got a job at Disneyland selling Mickey Mouse balloons when I was 15, and their requirement was 16. I don't know how that worked, but anyway, and that's where I learned how to tie balloons fast and really fast. And the spin tying method of doing the Mickey Mouse balloons was different, but we had to inflate balloons for parades and stuff like that for releases. And we just used to race each other, and I never had another thought in my mind. But as I went through college as a music major, I had these ideas because I could turn out balloons so quickly and quantities of them. I had this idea of putting 4 balloons on a paperclip, putting it on a line, and then packing it. And so for friends and stuff, for birthdays, I would do like a garland across the living room, all air inflated. And I saw the reaction. I mean, people would come in, it's like, but I saw the reaction to hundreds and hundreds of balloons being done, and it just filed away in my brain. And so I got sidetracked in the mid 70s by a man named Wally Amos, famous Amos chocolate chip cookies. And Wally and I became friends, and I went to work for his company. And it was while working there that a guy that delivered our pecans, Garvey Nuthouse, a guy named Dave Klein, uh, he and I became great friends. And Dave invented the Jelly Belly jelly bean. And he
You
came
must
to
have like
deliver.
the coolest dinner parties ever.
Yeah, he came to deliver pecans one day and threw a People magazine at me and said, "Treb, I'm in People magazine this week." I said, "Yeah, right, Dave. Just deliver the pecans and everything." And sure enough, there he was. And so I was. It's all in the book, but I was fired from Famous Amos. And Dave took me under his wing and said, "Treb, you really need to do this balloon thing." He said, "This is something you need to do it." And he was the one that encouraged me and made it happen. Even came up with a name. He was the one that coined my first company name, which was Balloon Art by Treb. And the word balloon art was ours, and I had a trademark on it. I protected it fiercely for many, many years. And then it's now become like Kleenex, where everybody talks balloon art,
Yeah.
balloon art, balloon art. But if somebody used it in their company title back in the day, I would I would call them up and say, "Hey, but I kind of let that go by the wayside." At any rate, that's how it started. Started doing events, and when I first started, caterers didn't have an idea what I was talking about. So I would go and do what they wanted, a few balloons on ribbons and stuff like that. But then I'd say, "Well, can I do what I want in the living room, or can I do what I want on the tennis court?" And I would bring tons and tons of balloons and just I had to show people and not make any money doing it, but I had to show people what was in my head and then get a photo of it. And then, and it went from there. And that's how the industry started. And it was really a mediocre rise when I go back and I've got all my books. I have every appointment book from 1975 on. So I can go through and find out the exact day that the balloon arch was created. When we started doing spiral, because in the beginning it was all just speckled, it was, it was my
Yeah.
brother working with us that said to me one time, we were doing a 79. We were doing the cast party for the musical Annie out here in Los Angeles. And we did red and white. And we were just working away. We already got one arch done. And then my brother Whitman comes to me and says, "Treb, I think if we put just 2 red balloons and 2 white balloons on each paper clip, that I can get a pattern with balloons." I said, "Whitman, we don't have time. Let's just keep going. And he didn't listen to me. And I turned around at one point and there it was. And to this day, you can look at that picture and see one arch perfectly spiraled and one arch that's not. And from that point on, then we went quickly into the 80s and 5 pack. Once we started 5 pack garland, we never went back to 4. We just like
Really?
looked. Yeah. And for our crews, I always worked with a crew from the very beginning and
Okay.
trained and shoulder to shoulder. And so pretty soon you've got this stable of people that can all tie balloons as fast as me, some of them very proudly faster. And so you walk into a ballroom with 4 people who can do 1,000 balloons an hour, 4 or 5 more people that are clustering and packing. And we used to make the busboys stop what they were doing and just watch us. I mean, they were just like, they could not believe how fast the columns had come out and things like that. But Um, we were just classic balloon decor. Our warehouse never had a spool of ribbon in it. We did not do centerpieces. We did not do balloons on strings. We did not. I mean, I was very focused. If I went to a party, sometimes a very big premiere meeting, and they said, "Well, we just want a balloon on the back of each chair and everything." I said, "Oh, I've got a great company in town here, Amina Steffens with Red Balloon. You can call her." Well, we just want you to do that. I said, "I'm sorry, we just don't do that." And they would look at me like,
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, like we were very focused on what we did,
Yeah.
and we made a reputation for ourselves, and it was always based upon quantity. The type of stuff that we did at events, people would come in and go, "Oh, wow," and the next thing they would say is, "Who did this?" And
Yeah.
boom. And by the 80s, 79 was a building year, but by 1980, we just had to answer the phone. I mean, it was, um, I always sold in person, always went on appointments, always booked appointments. People would eventually say, as it grew, they would call us and say, "I know what I want. I know what I want. I just want this and this and this." And my secretary, whatever, would have to fight with them and say, "No, Treb only does jobs by appointment." And because bottom line, people people think they know what they want, but once you get to their house and you open your portfolio and say, "Oh my God, I had no idea." Yeah, well, because we're
Yeah.
professionals, we're balloon artists, and we can show you stuff that you can't even dream of.
Yeah.
And then once I got them with that, then it would be in the selling process. "Oh, you know what we could do? Oh, it'd be great here. It'd be great there." And then I would say, "Okay, I'm going to come back to you with some prices and everything," but always sold in person. That's something I think that now with the internet and everything, and Tommy, Tommy and Scott would probably say, "There's no way, Trev," because I know they do everything on their little schmanky phones or whatever, So, um, but I sold in person, So I guess I went too far in the introduction, but that's
No,
you know,
oh my gosh, not at all. I think it's so interesting.
it started
And
with
then
that,
just
and then um, just doing parties, but parties quickly led to Tommy Walker. Became a good friend, and Tommy Walker was the entertainment director at Disneyland. I think he was the first one. And Tommy Walker brought me into the big events where we started doing things. My first Super Bowl I did with Tommy Walker. My first world record at the Sands Hotel when they reopened the Sands in 1981.
I
We
like how
did
you have to clarify my first Super Bowl and my first world record.
it. Yeah. Well, we've done 18 Super Bowls now, and
Oh my
I've had three
gosh.
Guinness World Records. Yeah, yeah. So I've been involved with all different types of things. But the first one was very special in that we created an American flag on the field for the pregame. And what happened was it was a 75-foot long American flag. We did all the stripes perfectly. They came out on the field, it was flat, and each one had a 5-foot balloon at the top. And then during the national anthem, while the national anthem was playing, one column at a time was released and it stood straight up.
Oh,
So by
sure.
the end, and our flag was still there was an American flag on the field, and the crowd normally doesn't cheer at that point, but everybody cheered. And then it was time that there were the Ram or no the I don't know I guess it was the Ram cheerleaders were holding one side, my crew was holding the other. Anyway, it was time so that when at the end of the song, when the crowd normally cheers, which they did, we waited 10 seconds, counted it down, and then released the flag. And you wouldn't believe the roar of the people. Already it was this high, and then it doubled again. And
That's amazing.
I remember running off the field with jubilation and tears in my eyes, and we did all kinds of crazy things back then, where we released stuff that we could never get away with today. But the Jim Steig was the special events director of the Super Bowl. Wrote me this note afterwards. He said, "Of all the Super Bowls we've ever done, Trev, that was by far and away my favorite pregame ever."
That's amazing.
So,
How do you like battle nerves with something like that? I know there's a lot of people that struggle with nerves, even for like an arch. They're just so confident something is going to go wrong because a lot of times something does go wrong. But
yep.
how on that scale do you manage that? Or do you just have nerves of steel?
Very, very good question. And as I'm very much in the last 2 years going over and delving into all the stuff that we did, that's something that amazes even me to this day when I look back on it. The sheer guts that we had, the confidence, the passion. the drive to do things like this on a world stage. Olympics in '84 was a prime example, but so many times we did things that had never been done before on a very large stage with
Yeah.
millions of people watching. And to say I was nervous, holy cow, yes. Was I a fun person to work with back then? I maintained the same crew for many, 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 many years, but each one of them will tell you he was an SOB to work with because I
Really?
was stressed out and wanted to make sure that everything, and you're dealing a lot of times outdoors, you don't have a lot of control.
Right.
And lucky, oh man, we were lucky so many times. Um, but it was just a drive and to make it happen and to make it work, you know. So one of my favorite things is that quote where it's opportunity is often overlooked by people because it is wearing overalls and looks a lot like hard work. And that was what we had. We had a lot of opportunities, but I wasn't afraid of hard work, and my crew learned that. I had more people tell me, I've seen more sunrises working for you than any other job I've had in my life, because we would get up at 3 a.m. and work and get things done so that everything was perfect, you know. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but
So
it's just,
how many years were you like in the trenches doing those type of things? Or like do you still maintain a warehouse with a crew? Like I'm not sure
no,
how much more you do.
another good question. We were actively and very prolific uh, in the years that we did it, but it was 79 to about 92, 93 that we were doing a lot of events, and that was my business. Along the way, we added a balloon concession, South Coast Plaza. We're in our 40th year of doing that. I did different things along the way, but actively doing amazing events for that long, and started doing the political conventions in 1988. Have done every Republican convention since that time, and done several of the Democratic ones. Consulted on a lot of the others. So that was what, 79, 89. So that's about 13 years maybe. And it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a long time, but when
Oh, it
you
is.
look at,
There's a lot of burnout right now. There's a lot of
yeah,
people that are 3 or 4 years in, and I think building, building is fun, and then when you get to the point where you have to keep it going
yeah,
sustainably, I think that's where it gets really challenging.
yeah. If you look back on a page though, and I had a dear friend that took all my project folders over the years and scanned them all and everything. You look back on a page of July of 1983, whatever, you look at the number of events that we did and the scope of the events. Burnout, I don't know if it was so much burnout, it was a career choice for me, but um, yeah, and being the first of anyone in the world, it's like, well, we know an NBA player, he can play from this until about here, and then that's it. Or a major league baseball player, yeah, he's good from here to this. Who knows how long you can continue, unless I were to turn it over. But and the other answer to your question is no. We do not do. I stopped doing events probably in '95, and
Okay.
that's when I went to work for Henry Unger and Associates. And Henry was the manufacturer's rep for Pioneer on the West
Okay.
Coast, and he was always bugging me to teach people teach people what I did, because of course he wanted the sales to go even more on the latex balloons and everything. So in the early '90s, I went to work for Henry, and I learned the distribution side, and that's when I got started thinking of products. He and I worked on a light up stick that would float that would light up a floating helium balloon, which is harder than what you think. Nowadays, it's probably be easier, but and that's where I came up with the glass house or the bubble balloon when I was working for Henry. So
Yeah, tell us
um,
about that because I know that is you said that's kind of your opening intro to strangers explaining what you
yeah,
do. And I'm
well,
going to Disney in November. I can't wait to get one, but like how did that become a thing? And wasn't that full circle that's where you started? Like so
isn't
poetic.
that amazing? Isn't that amazing? There was a thing. I met the people from Takara Kosan, a Japanese company, back in 1988 in Henry's office. And I was not working for Henry at that time, 88, 89. They brought over a small product called the T balloon. And it was about this big. They had one for 9-inch balloons and for 11-inch balloons. And it was basically that clear plastic. And in Japan, they would insert a 9-inch balloon and blow it up tight against the T balloon and use that for decor and things like
Hmm.
that. Because people in Japan, when you did something for decor outside, they wanted it to last for a week or something. So they use this product extensively in Japan. Um, so there used to be a stack of those on my desk when I started working for Henry, because I had tried to convince companies like Disney and things like that I did a lot of work for to use those, but it was very costly and they didn't want to pay the money. For us here in the United States, outdoor decor, one day, that's it, you strike it. Okay. So Henry used to say to me, Treb, he'd throw a stack of those on my desk. You got to think of something to do with these. I say, okay, okay, okay. And I believe me, I'd given a lot of thought before. And I was driving home. His office was in Santa Monica. I live in Orange County, so it's like an hour each way every day. So I was driving home one day on the freeway, and as I often do, I drive and listen to music, and that's my inspiration. And a light bulb went off. I went, wait a minute. And so we, back in those days, faxed to Caraco-san, said, hey, my idea was take that small balloon. Can you make it this size? And I had drawn a new neck and all that kind of stuff. Can you make it like this? And the first faxes came back, no, the film is only like this and this and this. And then I said, well, if you can make it this size, I believe that we could sell it to the Disney parks and this and this and this. Next fax came back. Let's see what we can do. So then faxes went back and forth, and finally product for me to test came in. They couldn't understand how I was inflating the Mickey Mouse balloon inside. They sent a contingency over at one point, and I showed them what I was doing. And then even with the product in hand, I didn't want to go to Disney before I had tested it. So I contacted a friend at the LA County Fair and ran a balloon concession at the LA County Fair before we went into Disney, because then I knew it would stand up to the heat and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And what it did is basically took the balloon that I sold as a kid, made it last a long time, made it so it didn't oxidize, all these great things. It was just like, holy cow, And we walked into Disneyland, presented it to them, and they said, we see this as a Tomorrowland balloon, and when can we start? And this and this and this, So I had to go in then and train the crew. They had stopped selling Mickey Mouse balloons.
Oh, really?
They had only sold foil then. This is '97. And so I had to go in and show a new crew not only how to inflate a Mickey Mouse balloon, but how to do it inside a glass house. We called it the glass house. And the name glass house came from the 60s, when people at Disneyland, my boss, Nat Lewis, used to sell a latex inside latex, clear latex with a Mickey Mouse inside, latex. And the guests nicknamed it Mickey Mouse in a Glass House.
Okay.
It wasn't something that they came up. So I took upon history and said, well, this is the new glass house balloon. So went in, trained the crew, spent 8 hours that day. And at that point, we had 5 foil balloon vendors in Disneyland. And they gave us one position in Tomorrowland, because the marketing people thought, well, this is a Tomorrowland looking balloon, So I came back the next day, and the kids that I had worked with the day before said, we really don't like your product.
Oh,
And
no.
I said, oh my God. I said, really? And I said, what is it you don't like? Well, we have our foil vendors, and we send them out into the park, and we don't have to worry about them for maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours even.
Oh,
But
no.
that glass house balloon vendor right there in Tomorrowland, we have to hit him with more balloons every 15 minutes, and it's hard for us to keep up. And I said, well, this is kind of a good problem, don't you think?
Yeah.
So at any rate, with one vendor, we were outselling all the other 5 by 3 to 1. And very quickly, it went 2 vendors and 3 vendors. And then finally, foil balloons went away and Glass House reigned supreme. And so the next park was Hong Kong. I did the opening of Hong Kong Disney, trained that crew. The third park was Walt Disney World. That's another wonderful long story. But the Disney World came on, and then the third park was actually Shanghai, and then finally Tokyo. It took me a lot of years to land Tokyo. I went there for 10 years, 2 or 3 meetings a year, just to get them to sell the product. And we actually run the balloon concession in Shanghai. My son Damon lives there since 2015. He and I walked that park as it was being built. And so we run the concession just like Nat Lewis ran the concession here. And so that's a little bit of I keep going on more over than your questions of
No, it's amazing. And I like that, even though, I mean, if you look at your career on paper, it's like, oh my gosh, you've done all these things. But then when you hear, like, I was driving in the car and I had this idea and the balloon wasn't big enough, so I asked if they would make it bigger. And they did, and it worked. It's like hearing the story makes, I guess for me, maybe hard things seem more possible, if that makes sense. It's just
Yeah.
step by step, and you get there, but it sounds like not giving up is kind of the the key.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, and that's it. Determination and not taking no for an answer. There's so many things that are possible. And as I say, I mean, good grief, I've had such an amazing run. And I said, what a great country is this that a kid that knows how to tie balloons fast can build something like this into not only a business but a career, and then the legacy and the happiness and the joy and all that kind of stuff that comes along with it. Um, yeah, I really appreciate that comment because that's how ideas happen. They
Well,
come to
and
you and then,
the longer, I mean, I've only been doing balloons for like 7 years, which, all of a sudden it's like, wait, I'm not a newbie anymore. I still feel like it. But I think the older I get, the more I just assumed like someone else will figure this out. Like if I'm having this problem, someone else is, and someone else more capable or with more resources, or someone else will solve it. And it's like, you know what? They might not. Maybe this is something that I'm going to need to solve. Like maybe this is something that now it's my time to ask the hard questions and figure out. It's like I just assume like, oh, the manufacturers will take care of that, or this company will take care of that, and it's us. It's the people who are in the trenches, so to speak, that I think know kind of how to move the industry forward. And it sounds like that's exactly what you have done.
yep, yep. I did it out of necessity sometimes, but other times just ideas. The Aeropole came about that way. Matt McKinney, his dad had a distributorship here, a Pioneer Balloon in Southern California, and I met Matt years ago, and he and I are still very, very good friends. But he came into our warehouse. We have two warehouses in Anaheim, just a golf shot from Disneyland, and he came in our warehouse one day with this pole, and Bill Chaffel and Bill has been working with me since 1985 and helps me design the balloons for the Disney parks and all that. But he showed it to Bill and I was like, wow. And I was bending the pole and stuff like that. And this is right about the time that with helium and all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
I think there was a helium thing. And I'm really bad with dates and how long ago it was. But anyway, Bill and I looked at that and I said, Bill, I think, we could do something with this and so that's how the process started of making how long we made it and everything. And then that's how the product came to market. We thought of the idea and the marketing things and all that. So, and it was in Japan when I met the people at SAG Balloons, Nobu and Yoko. And Nobu's about my age, been in the business all his life as well, from his father, this and that. And they have the walking balloons, the little
Oh yeah.
walking balloons over in Japan. And so I said, Nobu, they're not doing anything in the US. Can I get the rights to those? Henry and I worked on that. And Henry Unger was, let me not skip back, but so that's how the My Own Pet balloon, we came up, and I said I want it packaged, and we came up with the logo. Dave Klein again came up with the idea because he's a genius in terms of ideas, in terms of names and all that kind of stuff. But Henry was the one that opened up Asia to me. Henry had been going to Asia, to Hong Kong, twice a year for the toy show there all of his life. He'd been in the toy business forever. And so he started bringing me along to introduce me to the Hong Kong Disney people when that park was being built. And that's how that connection happened. And then he had connections over in Japan. And so I would go with him. And so I got to see Hong Kong through the eyes of Henry and his contacts and everything. And Hong Kong was just a magical place when I first went there. But Henry opened up all that and was just a mentor, a dear friend. We still talk to this day. But a lot of this that I'm doing now all over the world would not have happened without Henry. So dear friends that are like Dave Klein, Henry Unger, and people that have just been with me for a long time, Bill Chaffel.
Can I ask you about that? I know like this is a tangent, but how you said you've always worked with a crew, and now you're talking about these I mean, teammates doesn't seem like it does it justice, but like career long trusted friends almost. Have you ever had problems with that? Like have you ever, I don't know, been scared isn't the right word, but how have you been successful in building those partnerships or a crew? Like does that come naturally to you? Because I know for a lot of people, myself included, it's you want to make everyone happy, and it's hard to find those trusted friends. Like how have you done that in this industry?
Well, I think people have asked, and there's that one video. If you watch it, at the end they say, "What was the secret to your success?" The secret to my success is that I've always been able to communicate my ideas to other people. From the very beginning, what I wanted to do was something I couldn't do by myself because
Hmm.
my ideas were always huge. I needed a crew. I needed people working alongside me. So it was a necessity that I built up a crew of people, and we always worked and went because we did thousands and thousands of balloons. A bar mitzvah, we would do 2,000 or 3,000 balloons. It was not a big
Yeah.
deal. We just whipped it out. So that's how those crews were formed in the days. And did I have problems with certain crew members? I had problems with people that worked with me for a while and they went out and started their own business. Yeah. Was I happy about that? No. My goodness, family. You know, there was contentions within the family. And stuff
Okay,
like that.
interesting.
So, as far as the longevity in terms of these people, Henry and Dave and people like that. I'm just lucky. I'm fortunate to
Hmm.
have had them in my life. And Dave and I we still talk almost every day. And he is a wonderful person. But sometimes it's just luck. You're blessed to have people that have your back and you have that long term relationships.
We'll be right back after this short break from our sponsor.
One of the most common questions I'm asked is how much should I post on social media? Hi, I'm Jeff from Asset Lab. We're a marketing company that specializes in balloon decor and balloon twisting businesses. There's no right answer. You might be social savvy, you might be socially scared. You don't have to post all the time, but it might be a great way to generate revenue for your business. If you'd like to get some expertise on what's right for you, learn more about us at assetlab.us.
Let's transition and talk about my two favorite things in the world. Balloon drops and New Year's Eve confetti, because those are also a thing that you are known for. How did those come about? Did you also invent balloon drops, or were those being done?
Well, balloon drops, balloon releases, when I got into business, they had a history of not working. And, things could go wrong. And I always
Hmm.
prided myself in doing things that worked. And, man, I could count on two hands probably the events that had failures or some type of glitch to it. So, balloon releases, we started doing right away. There were a lot of them were done throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, all that stuff. So I always wanted to push the boundaries though, and do the largest and the biggest and all that, because the effect of putting the tear in the eye, the lump in the throat from a balloon release was just marvelous.
Yeah.
And especially if you can make it a surprise and all that kind of stuff. Balloon drops. I never even thought about the political conventions until I was actually contacted by a guy in Washington D.C. when they were working on the one in New Orleans for it was George Bush. It was after Ronald Reagan and George Bush was running and all that stuff. And so that was our first big balloon drop. And we, on that very first one, we devised a system that makes it unbelievably easy to do large scale drops. And we use that system to this day. And again, it was Bill Chaffel and I. Mostly his idea. I can't take credit for it, but we use gravity to do the inflation part, where we would go up into the upper deck of an arena, and we create what are these funnels. We have these fabric funnels that we hang over the side of the arena. There's three of them because a lot of times you do red, white, and blue. And then you position people just sitting in the chairs of the arena, and you run pipes and stuff like that have nozzles that are air coming out instead of helium. We have a huge compressor in the back, and people are basically just inflating the balloon and tossing it into one of these funnels that then goes down into a net. When that net is full, you seal that off, drop it down, put another net, and so forth. And the process is that I always went to the music programs in the different areas where I needed a lot of labor. And this is before balloon drops and everything, because I was a band kid and we never had enough money. So I'll go into a city and I'll say, hey, I'll go to a local high school and say, and I usually I pick a balloon person in that city and say, hey, get me a good high school. We go there together and I say, we need about 100, 150 people. And this is going to be the story. The buses will take you from your high school to the arena. You'll have credentials. Everybody gets a T-shirt. We'll provide breakfast to you. We'll provide lunch. We pay for the buses. We do all that. You help us inflate all the balloons. It'll go from probably 8 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. We'll have a big picture with everybody on the stage of the political convention, and then I'll present you with an honorarium, a check, which is a substantial check for their program. You get back in the bus and you go home. There's never been anybody that said no to it, and there's
Oh,
always
it's
great
amazing.
so that's what the process was on the balloon drops, and we pushed the boundaries where we just I think the one time we did 200,000 balloons coming down. Generally now it's around 100,000, but again it's orchestrated so quickly. And then Bill is down on the floor and works with the riggers because he speaks union, and he knows all the right terms and the carabiners and this and that. Where I'm just thrilled to be standing next to him because then the union has respect for us and this and that. So
That's amazing. Well, and I have to say, do you know where the Republican National Convention is this next year?
I do. It's in Milwaukee.
Guess where I live?
Well, there you go. So you're going to be there.
Oh my God, I'll die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would love to be involved in any capacity. And I work for a college in their arts department. So I was an orchestra kid though. But my mom was an orchestra director. So I thought my jaw was going to break when you were telling me about the band kids coming to help and
And
money back into the arts.
The band kids are always the best in the school anyway, because they always seem to be a notch above in caliber, and they're wonderful. And I always see when I watch them, I say, oh, there's my friends. I can see my band friend in them. It's the same type of student. So
we can take direction.
And the last time I did the opening of the Grand Avenue, there was a mall in downtown Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That was one of my first malls that I did back in '82 or something like that. Is it still there? I mean,
I think it's closed, but it's still there.
A lot of them have closed. Rouse Company. It was a Rouse Company project, but I love Milwaukee, and I have not been back since then. So
it's great. Yeah, it's great. Great city.
85, 86 shopping center openings around the country. So almost you could name a town. Oh yeah, I did a mall opening there, so.
Oh my gosh. Well, and I will link, if people are not familiar of what we're talking about, I'll link that video you sent me, the BuzzFeed one about the political drops. Because, it's just amazing to watch. But there was one year.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of the video. You were just like, I wasn't involved that year. And then they showed the clip of when it went wrong. Oh!
Yeah. And, Ricky Kirshner handles all the stuff for the Democrats. And we'd worked together on many projects together over the years. Ricky and I have a great relationship. And we had gone up to Boston that year, me and Bill, and met with them. And then Ricky called me shortly after that and said, some politics have happened, no pun intended, but the mayor has already awarded that whole thing to somebody else, and this and that. And a lot of times I would get calls from the Democratic side. The Republicans were very faithful and always hired me, but different other cities, I would get calls from a balloon person in a city that was having the Democratic convention. And they say, Treb, I need your help. I said, well, what is it you need help with? And they said, well, I've been awarded the balloon drop, but I've never done one before,
Oh my gosh.
It's like, and so that's what happens lots of times. So, and believe me, I was disappointed, but I was watching on TV that night and I saw it. And
was any part of you like a little happy?
Oh yeah. I mean, my neighbors 2 doors down heard me, and and his wife said, "What is that?" He says, "That sounds like a happy balloon man," So it was reciprocity. It was justification. I did not feel good for the people who failed. That's not what I was.
Right.
But several months later, Ricky and I were on a phone call, a conference call together about an event, the Ryder Cup down in New Orleans or something. They were where is that, in South Carolina? And so we had this whole meeting on this conference call, And then at the end of it, Ricky says, "Treb, I just have to commend you. Throughout this whole call, never once did you mention our balloon drop in Boston." And I said, "Ricky, I wasn't aware you guys had a balloon drop." And he said, "This call is now over." Okay.
Do you know what happened? Did they ever figure out what went wrong? Someone tied something to something?
To be honest with you, I saw it 2 days before because I was watching different news feeds and stuff. And of course, it generates a lot of publicity. I saw them working on these things. The nets were 100 feet long. And you don't do 100-foot long nets. You're going to have trip line problems.
Much tension, yeah.
Correct. And I don't know the people. I'll never, believe me, all this time has gone on. Nobody's ever said to me that. But bottom line, that's what I put it on. I learned that years and years ago that, it's just too hard. When we did the gallery at Market East in Philadelphia and we made these long nets and we got them out, but it was like, okay, no more. It's
Yeah.
better to do shorter nets and just do more of them and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's incredible. I like watch it no matter which politician it is. I'm like, gotta wait for the balloon drop. It's
Yeah, yeah,
so
and that's what
exciting.
people do, and that's what I remember the first time we did 5-foot balloons. That was '92. That's my favorite of all the balloon drops we've ever done. It was a combination of the music and the pageantry and all that. But that was an amazing balloon drop, and there were certain people on the committee did not want the 5-foot balloons. Other ones said, "Come on, yeah, let's do this." And it was like
So
they
I'm
were
trying to think, who would
gargantuan.
that have been?
That was George Bush Sr.
Okay.
He was running against Clinton. He lost. I always said the person who has the best balloon drop wins, but not that year.
Yeah.
So, and it was very funny because in 1988, when we did the convention in New Orleans, Bill Chaffel grew up in Bel Air, California, and everything, and his family was friends with the Brokaws, Tom Brokaw.
Okay.
So he's on the floor doing some nets and stuff like that. Tom Brokaw is walking across the convention floor, sees Bill, and is like, "Hey, what are you?" He said, "Yeah, I'm doing this and this and this." So when the balloons fell in 1988 on TV nationwide, Tom Brokaw says, "Yeah, that event was orchestrated by Bill Chaffel. He's my friend out in Los Angeles and everything." And I was like, "Ah!" And I called the producers the next day, and they said, "Oh, it's not a big deal." I said, "Oh, so in other words, if they gave somebody else production credit, you'd be fine with that?" He said, "No."
Yeah.
So anyway, fast forward to 1992, and we're doing the balloons up in the rafters, like I told you. And I had my wife made a huge sign that said, "Hey, Tom Brokaw, it's balloon art by Treb, not Bill Chappelle." So we're sitting there working away. All of a sudden, this woman comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, are you in charge of the balloons?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Can you?" She says, "I'm Tom Brokaw's producer. Can you please tell me what this sign is all about?" So I told her the story. She says, "I am always after him to get his facts correct." She said, "I'll tell you what, I'm gonna organize and have you do an interview with Tom. Would you be up for that?" I said, "Absolutely." And she said, "But can you do me a favor?" I said, "What's that?" She says, "Can you take the sign down?" I said, I said, "Yeah." She says, "I want to have it." I said, "Really?" I said, "You want it?" He says, "Yeah, I'm going to put it up in our office so it'll remind him always to get his facts correct."
Oh, that's so funny.
I got an interview out of that and all that.
That's amazing.
And Bill and I still laugh about that to this day. So.
Well, and then how did the confetti in Times Square come? At this point, were you just like the go-to for everything crazy, and they just came to you to figure out confetti?
I had done, the way it happened was this. I was called back to do the inauguration, George Washington's 200th anniversary of his inauguration, our first president. He was inaugurated in Wall Street. And it was some people in Radio City Music Hall, Barnett Lipton, that I worked with on the Olympics, that was working on this huge event for that. And they called me back. And we did some balloon effects, but they all said, "Can you do confetti?" And I had done some confetti stuff with Disneyland out here. My friend Claire Graham, the entertainment art director, and I saw how they disperse confetti and all, and the type of confetti and all that. So I said, "Sure." And the confetti turned out to be this huge hit. Well, the person that was putting on that event, the 200th anniversary of the inauguration, worked in the mayor's office back there, and his name was Peter Coleman. A couple of years later, the troops at Desert Storm came home. The first thing back there in Iraq, and actually, it wasn't in Iraq, but it was the troops at Desert Storm. They did a big parade up Broadway. Okay, Norman Schwarzkopf and everything back then. And they called me back again. I can't remember who called me. I think it was Barnett again. And we did 10,000 pounds of confetti over a period of about 6 hours as they went by the reviewing stand and stuff like that. We were down by the Woolworth building on Broadway there and everything. We also had large 40-inch balloons every once in a while. Okay, do some more balloons. Boom, they would come out. Red, white, and blue balloons, confetti coming down, all this kind of stuff. Who was involved in this event? Well, that would be Peter Coleman. This time I got to meet Peter, and he and I kind of hit it off. About a year later, I get a call from Peter. He says, "Treb, they're starting a new business here in Times Square called the Business Improvement District." And the idea was all the businesses in the district there contributed a little portion of their money every month to have this the bid, they called it, the Business Improvement District, clean up Times Square. Their idea was to get out the peep shows, get out the card people on the streets, and
Mhm.
basically clean up, actually have Disney-like people going around sweeping and things like that. And with the mindset that if they cleaned up Times Square, businesses would come back in. So Peter says, we're now in charge of the ball drop. Can you fly back here and let's talk about some ideas of what we could do to enhance the experience for the people that come out? That's how it started. And the very first year I said, well, the easiest, I said, balloons are one thing, but cold weather and all this stuff, I said the easiest thing to start with would be confetti. So I put on my suit and tie and went to all the buildings in the bow tie of Times Square. And there's some heavyweight buildings there, the Viacom building and the Bertelsmann, a huge publisher worldwide, and the old Paramount building that's been there since Frank Sinatra sang there and all that. But I went in and told them, we're going to have a crew of people. We need a setback here. We need this here. We need that there. And we started with 7 positions around the bow tie, and it's all done by hand.
Yeah.
We basically no machines and everything. Well, after the first year, it was such a huge success. The very first year, right out of the box. The next year, we added some balloons coming down. Then Peter wanted to pass out balloons to the crowd, so I contacted my buddy Danny McGowan in upstate New York, ran balloon affairs, and he comes down and does the balloons every year because I didn't want to dilute my efforts of doing the confetti by also having to do the balloons. So, but it's gone on and on. And by the second year we did it, everybody in New York thought it had happened forever. It was like this instant tradition.
Yeah.
And so I have a folder every year in my computer. People contact me from around the world. I'd like to be on the crew. And then we send out notices in July. Okay, you're on the list. And we try and limit it now to just 100 people. But it's a wonderful thing. They come and get their credentials on the 30th. And the same room they get their credentials the next night. They report to that same room. We do an orientation, go over all the safety things, all this, all that. Obviously, no drinking, no drugs, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we take our positions. We're all connected by radios. We have crew chiefs on each building. And a more marvelous event I cannot describe. I've told people over the years, I can recommend a restaurant to you. Oh, this is the greatest, and you'll go and go, wasn't that good? A movie, I can tell you, this movie, wasn't that good? I can tell you right now, it'll be the greatest New Year's you've ever had in your life. And I have no doubts that it will be.
Yeah.
Because when people follow me, I always call the show off the Minskoff Theater, which is right in the heart. That's the Viacom building, 1515 Broadway. And when we walk down this nondescript little hallway little hallway that is above the Lion King and all that stuff, and all of a sudden you open this door, and our setback is a block long, and you walk out and you see a view of Times Square you've never seen in your life. 500,000 people down below cheering and doing all this stuff. We can go in and stay warm, have a sandwich. We have restrooms. We have all that stuff. You go out and look again and this and that. And then we get the confetti ready. And most people, even if it's, 20 degrees or something, most people will be out on the setback that last hour because from 11 to 12, it's like electric out there. And it goes so fast,
Yeah.
Everybody gets everything ready. And then we say, go confetti. And it becomes a blizzard within seconds. And Old Lang Syne kicks in. And, New York, Frank Sinatra follows that. And once everybody has dispersed their confetti, it stays in the air for a long time because it goes way high up before it goes down. And so people are high kicking and dancing. And, so you can see that it's hard for me to talk about.
I have goosebumps on goosebumps. When I see, because I now know several people through balloons who have done it. And every year I just love seeing their Facebook photos of them in the buildings, getting ready to throw the confetti. It's just, even being just friends with people who have done it, I get so excited. Like it's just so incredible. Do you still do there were wishes written on the confetti. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's handled by the Business Improvement District. They've now become the Alliance. They changed their names, but same organization. And by the way, what they attempted to do, Gretchen Dykstra and Peter Coleman were the heads. and Bob Esposito of the original Business Improvement District. And I used to roll my eyes because they said, we want to make Times Square something that families can come to. And in the early days, it was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And yet they did it. And
Yeah.
Gretchen, you can look up Gretchen Dykstra on FaceTime too. And she's just like one of the most amazing people you'd ever want to know. And they did it. And everybody thinks, oh, well, Disney came in and that's why all the businesses came in. No, 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 no. It was exactly opposite. They cleaned it up. That brought the businesses in just like they'd envisioned. Gretchen and Peter came to the 25th anniversary several years back, sat in the orientation. I got to introduce them. And they changed my life, you know? It's one thing to have this balloon career and this and that, and, and that's a wonderful deal. But I've gone, I can't even name the number of countries, including Saudi Arabia. I've spent months over there doing things for the royal family and this and that. Anywhere I go, and I say to somebody, well, you know, they do this thing in New Year's in New York. Oh, the ball. Everybody knows the ball. And that thing is viewed by more people. I say, well, yeah, we do the confetti there. We orchestrate that and everything. No, you don't. I said, yeah, we do. We've done it for 30 years now and everything. So it's a wonderful thing they did by cleaning up Times Square the way they did. It needs a new kick right now because there's a lot of things in New York that I wish were going better. But that things ebb and flow and all that. But still, it's a marvelous time to be in the city. Right after Christmas, all the stuff is still up. You can walk and see things. And this year will be one of my favorites because my grandkids, Brooklyn and Tyson, get to come back. 9 years and 6 years old. So it's going to be hard for me to get through the orientation this year because they call me a crybaby anyway. That's my favorite term for me because I think it's the most derogatory thing they can say to me. You're a crybaby. But I get to introduce them this year. And the orientation is always, some of the people that have done it for 20 years say it's the highlight of the event for them because I introduce each person during roll call, say a little bit about them if I can. I do my research and everything so that when we leave the building that night, we're like this huge group of people. Then at 12:01, we're the largest group of sober people in Times Square.
Yeah,
So,
I would imagine.
We always contract with a local pub. For years, it was Eleni's until Mr. Eleni passed away. And we go down and we have like a second floor or something given to us, and open bar, open restaurant, and everybody sits there and tells stories about their experience, from that night, and they share, So that's another side thing that is just great, So that goes on until about 3 a.m, then we go to bed.
Well, and I have to tell you too that you inspired me because I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know the confetti was thrown by hand. Second of all, I didn't know that it was sort of within this balloon world until a couple years ago. I saw Scott and Tommy involved. I saw their pictures on Facebook and they did a picture of the confetti with the wishes written on it. And it just stayed with me. I just thought that was so cool. So then at Balloon Wonderland, I was involved very early, not even in the design process as much as it was like the storytelling process with what it's going to look like and how, and I heard about these wishes that these kids have. And I was like, what if they write their wishes on the balloons and we spread them out, like we make them part of the build? And that was completely inspired by you and the confetti. It was just like,
well, and I'm sorry I didn't answer the wishes thing, but that was the Business Improvement District's idea. And they have a booth set up. I think they started after Thanksgiving, might be before, in Times Square, where people come by and they write the wishes and they collect them, And one of the last things we do on the 31st, Bill and I go by the offices there and grab the bags, and each building has some bags of wishes that we mix into the confetti. And a couple of years ago, the guy that started Crocs, the shoes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name. Wonderful, wonderful human being. And he and I were in the hallway of the Minskoff, and he cracked open a box. And he saw the wishes. He said, "Oh, let's read these." And so we were sitting there reading them together, and they bring tears to your eyes, some of the wishes, about, I hope my mom's cancer is gone, and this and that. One wish we came across had a phone number. And I hope somebody finds this and this and this and this, And he looks at me and he goes, "We got a call." I said, "Yeah, we do." So we did. And this person answers, and we said, and it was some heartfelt wish that they had put on there and everything. And I said, "I just want to let you know that we're getting the confetti ready." and there was silence on the end of the phone. And then he and I could both hear the person was sobbing. They were
Oh,
crying. And so that was a fun thing, I mean, not often you get to have a connection. I said, well, we're getting it ready and it's going to go out tonight, So it's a cool thing. And how many of the wishes are read, I don't know. But you got to think that with, that many people down below, and I'm hoping that we're back to full force again this year, because that adds a lot to the excitement, the
yeah.
crowd level and everything, So anyway, the stories are legion over the years. Doing an event for 30 years, especially the year 2000, where we did a 24-hour event. We started at 6 in the morning. We went till 6 in the morning the next year, because we were following New Year's as it went around the world. And we did effects every year, every hour. Like 9 o'clock was cherry blossom confetti for Japan. We did this and that. We've had so many amazing experiences in that city. And my mom was a babbling girl, babbling Long Island. And so she grew up in New York. So I kind of lived, or she lived vicariously through me when she could no longer travel and everything. And I would tell her about what was going on. But I feel like there's something about it meant to be, that New York connection. So, but
Yeah.
I am thrilled to be in the position to do it. I've always been a person, if I like something a lot, I want to share it. I
Mm-hmm.
want to share a good restaurant. I want to share this, and I will. And so being able to share this with people, an experience like this, means more to me than any amount of money that I make on the event, which is very little. I never change the price to them. I just, this year will probably just barely break even with all the price increases and everything. But I do it because I love it. And as long as I can still get around and it's fun, I'll continue to do it. So that's
That's
the way I feel
amazing.
about it.
Well, let's kind of wrap up, even though this has been amazing. I could talk to you all day. But what is next for you? Should we be looking forward to any new releases? I'm
you
setting you up
know,
here.
you would think at my age and everything, and I should mention too that our entire business now, my son Damon runs Shanghai. My son-in-law Ty works in the office with us. His cousin Quan is also in the office. So we're all family. And we run the businesses, South Coast Plaza concession, Shanghai concession, this and that. And we're soon to open another business up in Los Angeles early part of next year with another amusement park up there. And that was the call last night for Osaka. They're asking us to come over there and start a business there in Osaka. So those are the two things on the forefront right now. But again, I'm very much of a figurehead in these. The kids are doing the heavy lifting now, and I have to let them do that because I shouldn't have to let them. I have to do that because um, they're more than capable. They're actually better business people than I would ever was. And I just have to relax a little bit because I still go in all the time and I'm still got my finger on the pulse. I'm very involved with the creative process because we create the balloons for the Disney parks and we'll sit there with the artwork and Bill will punch it up and then we'll do this and then we'll say, what about the, oh, that's good, or no, and that, or my idea will be shot down and this and that. So I still like that part of it, still creating the balloons. And then when I go to the parks and I see it, I go, oh yeah, that came off our desk and everything. So balloon vending is still very much in my blood, and that'll be, like you said, the coda is amazing to have it start there at 15 and now come full circle. And that's why the book is just going to be marvelous. And there are parts of the book that we didn't talk about tonight. What was the main impetus for me knowing that I could start a business in a party thing with balloons, and that had to do with a job I had when I was in high school and everything up in Beverly Hills and everything. But
Well,
it's
when
been
can we expect that? When will your book be available?
people have been asking that for years, and if I that was the only thing I had to do. I have to lock myself here in my office at home and just finish it. But we're 19 chapters done. I've been going through the images now and starting to put images to chapters, and now I need to get a what do you call it, the literary agent to shop it and everything. But it's going to be a marvelous book,
Oh, I can't wait.
because it's a success story, a true American success story. But the pictures and that follow it up and everything, people have no idea, until I had my high school reunion meeting over here last night. We're having our 50th reunion, and these are people I went to school with and everything. And I said, hey, you guys want to see some shows after, And, yeah. So we piled down in my living room, huge screen and everything, and I punched it up, and they were like, we had no idea. We had no idea that this was the nature of the work that you did over these years and everything. So you have to see the photos, because the balloon industry has changed from what we were doing back then in the 80s. And if anything, if I could share with the people that are listening to this, is the thing about balloons is quantity and scale. You can do a lot of things now. And believe me, I was blown away by the people I met at Balloon University this year, the type of work they did. I always loved Sue Boulder's classes. I was sitting there. You asked me a question about, do I still get excited? I watched the whole build day after day of the ballroom. And there's Guido and Gary Ledbetter, and people I've known for years. And there's Melissa Ray Vincent, and she's working with her crew and everything on this stuff. And it was marvelous on the floor. And then all of a sudden, Gary hoists one of her pieces up the one day, and I just stopped in my tracks and I started taking pictures and stuff like that. And I went over and I gave Melissa a big hug, and I said, "That's amazing." So excitement, yeah. I mean, and they're teaching me stuff now, stuff I could never do. I would never even attempt some of the stuff that they do. So I still get excited about the new generation now taking the torch and running with it. But I just encourage people to do big, because scale is everything. And if you can get your skills up to where it's nothing to do, because I could have ideas. It didn't matter how big they were. We had a crew that could do it. So the skill doesn't limit your creativity then. We could do a column clear from here to here, then go to that, and da. That's going to be, what is that? Okay, 3,200 balloons there. Okay, then we'll do the columns there. And then it was like there was no limit, because our skills we were monsters. The kids that worked for me, and now they're still to this day, we get together and everything, they were monsters, And we did a little bit back at the New Orleans show down there several years ago, the WBC. I did a class where I brought back my brother, my sister, that started the event, started the business with me, and we did, at the start of every class, I put on one of my favorite Springsteen songs, and within the course of that song, we built 5 columns that stood up straight and everything like that, and we showed them how it was done in the old days, and that's how each class started off. And I've got the recordings of that, but that'll probably never happen again,
Yeah. Oh, well, it's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This has just been
pleasure.
The highlight. I'm just so excited for everyone to hear this. And I just don't think most people know where our industry came from. So it's just nice having some of that context.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'll keep you posted on when the book's coming out. And I hope you can edit this down to something that is digestible.
I'm not editing anything. This is amazing.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me in this week's episode. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light in a few minutes or less. If you wish there were more episodes, you are in luck. You can join us in our Patreon group for our monthly book club. I record weekly episodes guiding you through a different self-development book each month. For as little as $3 a month, you can join more than 50 other balloon business owners in our private group. Click the link in the show notes to join us.